You might be in big trouble if you don't know how to cross the street in Vietnam. One wrong move, and your vacation could get very interesting. Because in Saigon, crossing the street is not as easy as it looks. It's a real survival skill. Every single day, millions of motorbikes flow through the streets like a chaotic river of steel. To an outsider, it looks like complete madness. But what if I told you there's actually a secret rhythm to this madness? What if the secret to surviving and even mastering this wild traffic isn't fighting it, but learning how to move with it like a local? Let's dive into the fascinating world of Vietnamese traffic and uncover the hidden rhythm that millions of people follow every single day. Picture this. You have just landed in Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City. You walk out of your air-conditioned hotel, step onto the sidewalk, and suddenly the city hits you. Heat, humidity, horns, engines, thousands of motorbikes moving in every direction. You look across the street and realize something terrifying. There is no obvious moment to cross. Cars are coming from one direction, motorbikes are coming from another. Someone is turning, someone is stopping, someone is squeezing through a tiny gap, and somehow everyone else seems completely calm. You stand there waiting for the perfect moment. 10 seconds pass, 20 seconds, 30, still nothing. Every time you think the road is finally clear, another wave of motorbikes appears. You start wondering, am I supposed to run? Then you see a Vietnamese grandmother casually step off the sidewalk and walk straight into the traffic. She doesn't run. She doesn't panic. She doesn't even look nervous. The motorbikes simply move around her. And suddenly, you realize something important. Maybe the traffic isn't as random as it looks. In many Western countries, traffic feels predictable because everyone follows clearly defined lanes, signals, and right-of-way rules. You wait for the green light, cars stop, pedestrians cross. Everyone generally knows what the other person is supposed to do next. In Saigon, the same basic rules exist, but the road often feels much more fluid. Vehicles constantly adjust their speed and direction based on what everyone around them is doing. Instead of moving like trains on fixed tracks, traffic behaves more like a flowing river. And this is where many visitors make their first mistake. They try to understand Vietnamese traffic by looking for a completely empty gap. They stand on the sidewalk, waiting for that perfect 3-second window when absolutely nothing is coming. But that moment may never arrive. The traffic is almost always moving. If you wait for the road to become empty, you might be waiting for a very long time. The secret is not finding a road with no traffic. The secret is learning how to move safely while the traffic is still moving. But this doesn't mean you should simply walk into the street without thinking. That's not the lesson. The real skill is understanding speed, distance, and predictability. When you step into the road, sudden movements can confuse approaching riders. Running can make your direction unpredictable. Stopping in the middle of the road can create another problem. Instead, you want to move slowly, steadily, and predictably, allowing approaching vehicles enough time to see you and adjust their path. Think about what happens when a motorbike approaches a pedestrian. The rider doesn't necessarily need you to disappear. They need to understand what you're going to do. If you suddenly run forward, they have to react. If you suddenly turn around, they have to react again. But if you continue walking at a steady pace, your movement becomes predictable. The rider can calculate your position, adjust their speed, and pass around you. What looks like chaos from the sidewalk is actually thousands of tiny decisions happening every second. And then, there is the sound that scares almost every first-time visitor: the horn. Back home, a loud horn can feel aggressive. You might think someone is angry, impatient, or about to hit you. In Vietnam, however, a short horn often has a much simpler message: "I'm here." It can mean, "I'm coming up behind you," "I'm passing," or simply, "Please notice me." Once you understand this, the streets suddenly sound different. The horns are no longer just noise, they become part of the communication system. The same thing happens at intersections. Watch closely and you'll notice that people aren't simply moving randomly, they're constantly watching. A rider slows down because another bike is turning. A car gives a little space. Someone changes direction slightly. Another person accelerates through a small opening. There may not always be a huge empty space between vehicles, but there is constant communication through movement, speed, eye contact, and positioning. The traffic feels messy because there are so many moving pieces, but underneath it is a continuous negotiation. This is why one of the biggest mistakes a foreigner can make is trying to fight the traffic. You see a motorcycle coming toward you and your instinct says, "Stop!" Then another one appears and you stop again. Soon you are standing frozen in the middle of the road, unsure where to go next. But the goal isn't to defeat the traffic. You don't need every motorcycle to stop for you. You simply need to move predictably and allow the flow to adjust around you. And once you understand that, something strange happens. The street doesn't suddenly become quieter. There aren't fewer motorcycles. The horns don't disappear. The road is still busy, but your brain changes. What once looked like a wall of random vehicles starts to look like a moving pattern. You begin to notice gaps. You notice speed. You notice which vehicles are turning. You start predicting what will happen before it happens. This is the moment when you stop being a terrified spectator and start becoming part of the rhythm. You begin to understand that Vietnamese traffic isn't simply about following a set of rigid movements. It's about awareness. It's about reading the people around you. It's about knowing when to move, when to slow down, and when to let someone else pass. The city is constantly moving, and you learn to move with it instead of fighting against it. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson Saigon traffic can teach you. What looks like chaos from the outside can have its own hidden order. What looks frightening can become familiar once you understand the rhythm. And what seems impossible on your first day can become completely normal after you've experienced it enough times. So, the next time you stand on a sidewalk in Saigon, staring at a river of motorbikes and wondering, "How am I ever going to cross this?" Don't look for the chaos, look for the rhythm. Because once you understand the rhythm, the street doesn't become less busy. You simply become better at moving through it.